We will now move on to our final panel of today. It is titled Innovators in Sustainability and Wellness, the Entrepreneurs. Now, this panel will feature entrepreneurs who have developed innovative solutions from reducing waste to improving wellness. And their innovations are changing consumer habits, so we're going to hear about that. Our next moderator is Monica Dolores Hooks. She is a mega marketer, as I like to call her, and executive director of the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative. Monica.
Thank you so much, Claudia and Jill and the Women's Chamber of Commerce. We are pleased and delighted to be here to talk about the innovators in sustainability and wellness. So, as Claudia mentioned, I'm the executive director of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is the only incubator of its kind in the nation focused on women, sponsored by the city, and fully in line with the role of economic mobility, resilience, and equity for women, because we believe strong communities have strong women. We also believe that good business is run by women, just as a default. So our mission is to elevate, engage, and empower entrepreneurship through women, because again, women mean good business. I've got the pleasure and honor of introducing 4 members of our current cohort, 4 superstars, 4 innovators in the space of sustainability and wellness. First, we've got Victoria Randall from The Secret Cocktail. We have Tangeria Willis from eCloset. We have Kiana Wingfield from Cool Moms Dance 2. And last and certainly not least, we've got Akisi Stokes from Wonder Grub. I'm going to ask each of the ladies to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about why they are an innovator in their space. And particularly of note, 2020 and 2021 have been some challenging years for everyone on the panel and everyone in our community. And I think we as a group believe that the solutions are within us. And we believe that we've got the solutions that are going to guide us into much brighter days and a number of silver linings. Solutions we've already heard about today. Shout out to my AT-Alien sisters, Dalavant and others. But these women really are leading the way, and I can't wait for this community to hear their innovations and what we see for the future. So we will start with Akisi Stokes of Wonder Grubs. And Akisi, can you tell us a little bit about the innovations you're developing in food sustainability?
Hi, thank you. Happy Women's History Month and also International Women's Day. I'm glad to be here. So CEO and co-founder of Wonder Grubs, we actually supply premium high quality insect protein, and not that kind of edible that you find in Colorado. So we got into the business, my co-founder and I, Kareem Nelson, for a lot of the reasons that Ms. Elizabeth mentioned earlier when you talked about food relief. And many of the reasons, the barriers that people run into: insufficient income, lack of transportation, poor quality of food, shelf life. Also, when we start looking at food relief in countries that were devastated by catastrophic event, a lot of times people didn't think about the agriculture. It takes a number of years to come back. And so we wanted to provide a protein that didn't require a lot of natural resources to grow. It also was very resilient. And through a long winding road, we landed on grubs, mealworms that people affectionately call them. And we realized that we didn't have to wait for a catastrophic event. They were a perfect protein option that was affordable for people. It was accessible. They were nutritious. And when you talked about natural resources or sustainability, we also didn't want to cause harm to the earth growing this protein. So they require no direct water use. They require no chemicals. Their 10% of the land is required compared to traditional livestock to grow. Higher protein concentration, food and waste can double as inputs, and reusable energy. They align with 10 of the 17 sustainable development goals. I could go on and on and on. And so with that, we've expanded, we pivoted right before 2020 and COVID said pivot again. And so we are currently launching our Internet of Things enhanced shipping container that we fabricated into a grub hatchery that is located currently at Piedmont Park, hopefully to open at the end of this month or beginning of April, where we're showcased to people what it looks like to grow with grubs, touch them, taste them. We're also doing, my dog likes sustainability too. We're also doing, we also in partnership with Georgia Tech have launched 2 MVPs that we're beta testing with 2 farm cooperatives in Alabama and Mississippi. I'm a woman, I'm gonna keep going. Alabama and Mississippi. Also, we've got, we're also launching another beta with 2 international communities, with 2 refugee communities, displaced Cameroonians in Ghana and Nigeria. And so we're also going to be introducing hatchery to home farm kits to kids, showing them what it looks like to be environmental stewards. And we've got a bunch of little add-ons and some additional things coming down the pike, some surprises for Atlanta. So we want to show what it looks like to have a food system or reimagine a food system that's more resilient using insects as food and not as pests.
Thank you, Akisi, and your puppy. Tanjuria, talk to us about sustainability in fashion and perhaps one of the first here coming to Atlanta.
Well, hi everyone. It's been a wonderful day. I've enjoyed all of the panelists and the entire day. It's been amazing, Jill. My name is Tanjuria Willis. I am the owner of eCloset. eCloset is a sustainability lifestyle company. It is a cutting-edge boutique. We're committed to saving the environment by offering designer brand previously loved clothing, while educating shoppers on the personal and global benefits of sustainability and sustainable fashion. What most people don't realize is that approximately 85% of all textiles thrown away in the US end up in the landfills or are incinerated. The fashion industry is responsible for about 10% of all greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and about 20% of all global wastewater every year. So our goal is to use technology as well as our showroom, as well as fashions, to empower women to embrace their personal style by also saving money, while also, because women can do everything, while also reducing the carbon footprint on the environment. So we have a bunch of things coming up. We have our showroom facilities. We're also building out technology so that at the touch of a finger, you can get more information about how you can wear your clothing stylishly while saving on the carbon footprint. And we've also have an event coming up that we're planning. We will be launching coming soon in the next month or so with the Sustainability Fashion Week, where we'll be featuring designers that produce sustainably and ethically friendly, eco-friendly clothing, and a marketplace on how you can find all of those things.
Very nice. I am looking forward to Sustainable Fashion Week launching here in Atlanta. We're going to pivot now to wellness. And Kiana Wingfield of Cool Moms Dance 2, can you tell us how you're applying sustainability and wellness in your business and innovating?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm Kiana Wingfield, CEO and co-founder of Cool Moms Dance 2. I founded the organization with my 2 elementary, well, now middle school age children. And just like everyone else, just being completely practical, in 2020, our whole lives turned upside down as moms. Like everything that we knew to be a norm became abnormal. Our children were home completely. Those who were homeschooling prior were familiar with life as we know it to a certain degree, but all the things that we used in order to stay healthy, our children being in programs, in school, being able to, go to gym and all of these things, they became scarce when it came to COVID and needing to work from home and do school from home. So Cool Moms Dance 2 is an organization that was providing family health and wellness programs in the likes of dance fitness classes, mental health wellness programs, but we were doing it in person. And everything we did was about touching each other, having an intimate connection, because we utilized dance as a form of therapy. But we had to pivot with the world when the world changed. And at that point, we had to see technology as a partner in order to make sure that we can still deliver service, but also the rich experience that families needed in order to stay mentally and emotionally healthy. Like, you can imagine the world changing at the drop of a dime. And, mental health was such a stigmatized thing at that time. But now everyone is in line with the fact that we need a release. We need some way to stay connected. Even when you're in the home with your children, we need activities. We need something to keep us revitalized and feeling good and just feeling like we have an outlet. And Cool Moms Dance 2 was created for that. And now that we are partnering with technology and have different outlets to work with, it allows us to create a experience that's rich at home for families to do together in the comfort of their home. So it has definitely been an adjustment. I know that there's many moms in this space who can relate to the adjustment of needing to be all the things at once. You're homeschooling, you're doing Zooms with your business, you have all these different hats on. But when it comes time to really letting your hair down, how are we managing that? How are we engaging in the most meaningful conversations? And what we do is we open up lines of communication through dance so that we can meet on a human level with our children to further a conversation to address the mental well-being of ourselves going through all of these things. So I hope to get to learn more about you all, but I would love to, get you more familiar with Cool Moms Dance 2 and what we're doing with technology, as well as innovating in our space.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wingfield. I know a lot of moms that need this service. And then we've got Victoria Randall, CEO of The Secret Cocktail. Victoria, I know it's not about a glass of wine. So tell us how you're making innovations and strides in the place of health and wellness.
Thank you. By the way, this event has been nothing but awesome. Just hearing the way other women's minds work and just further pushing you to push your limits and your things that you can do. So I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Victoria Randall. I'm a family nurse practitioner and the owner of The Secret Cocktail. And we are a consulting agency. We actually consult to help start healthcare career schools across the nation. As you know, with the pandemic, well, first of all, before the pandemic, there was already a huge shortage in healthcare workers, period. And the pandemic just added to that significantly. My firm helps to start healthcare career schools, but we focus more on CNA, which is Certified Nursing Assistant. A lot of people don't realize, but Certified Nursing Assistant education is federally regulated. So we know with the federal government, anytime they regulate something, it becomes a hassle. And creating and erecting these schools all over became a hassle for people, and it was not easy. So I already had experience. I had already done it for myself. So I started consulting to help other people. Now, what does that look like on a global level? Well, whether you know it or not, a fourth of our population come 2050 will be 65 years of age and older. What does that mean? What is already a traumatized system is going to be tripled. I don't know the number come 2050 and so on, 20 years after that. So there's going to be a huge need for healthcare workers. And so with the work that we're doing, we are helping to bridge that gap significantly throughout the USA. Now, in addition to that, with COVID, now we had to take healthcare education online. Well, how do you do that? What does it look like to care for a person or to learn how to care for a person from a virtual environment? And many nurses are old school nurses. I'm one of them. I remember back in the day, we used to chart on paper. Now we have computers and so on. So this is a huge learning curve for a lot of my clients, trying to figure out, how do I now teach healthcare online? So we have put together lots of resources, a lot of resources that already just kind of exist, and some resources that we are currently building just to help our clients understand how to bridge that gap and deliver that healthcare education so that we devise competent care workers that when they get out there. Because let's be honest, if you knew your healthcare provider learned through online platform, you would be a little afraid, I'm sure. Let's just be honest. So making sure that we're putting together curriculums, and that's where we specialize. We specialize in curriculum development policies and procedures for our clients to help ensure that they have a curriculum that is robust and that definitely provides the students with what they need so that they are competent and caring healthcare providers. So that's a little bit about what I do. And I'll stop there because I have a visitor.
That's awesome. Ladies, thank you for introducing yourselves, your companies, and some of the topics that we're going to touch on in this discussion. Because I heard things like interconnectedness, using technology to pivot. Connecting the nonprofit to the for-profit is something that we talked about, and adult learning. Let's talk a little bit about the interconnectedness. And Tanjuria, Akisi, I'd love for you guys to talk about the connection between food and fashion.
Tangeria, you're on mute. That's our sketch for 2021. You're still on mute.
Yeah, you're still on mute, Tangeria.
Okay, so sorry about that. With sustainability, everything is interconnected. I mean, it really is. There's all these pieces of things that you reuse and you recycle. And so, with fashion, and I think everything almost goes back to food. And with fashion, there's also this a health aspect of that, where most people that are in the fashion industry or anything around fashion, there's always this healthier eating component that's involved in that. And when Akisi and I started talking, it was no different than using a healthier alternative, with so many people now going to veganism and eating a lot more things healthier, and trying to find alternatives to some of the synthetic items that are out there, in the same way that we do with fashion, replacing synthetic materials and fabrics in that same manner. We saw it as a fit, as also with able to provide for my fashion shows, provide models with meals that could use alternative proteins, such as Akisi's grubs or things like that. So for us, it was, it went hand in hand with being able to provide a totality in healthy services for people and sustainable living.
Yes. So when Tanjira called me up, I was like, yes, she gets us. And so the thread that Tanjirian's mentioning when she talks about, there definitely is a synergy between, healthy alternative. When you talk about sustainability, it's multifaceted, so it comes in many ways through fashion. And so when we think about even some of the things that traditional livestock, when you talk about protein, are used for, majority of it is not used for food. A lot of it is used for clothing. Some of it's used for like lipids in your downy, that softens your clothing. So it's interesting the different things that what we associate with food may be used for. When you talk about also when Tangier and I were talking about, how to incorporate the grubs into it, it was showing, okay, from a sustainable part, when she talks about workforce reskilling, introducing people to different ways that they can look at sustainability. We have some people and some of the farm cooperatives that we work with who are reusing clothing for mesh to use with the grubs. So there are a lot of different synergies that we've been able to find. And so we're really excited to be working with Tangeria on this and letting her allowing us to introduce this to people and kind of reducing the ick factor around what it looks like to eat with insects. As I tell many people, it's a really short process. Unless you've grown up on a farm like I have, unless you've killed your own cow or your own chicken, grubs are a little less offensive. So
imagine that.
I can imagine.
You know, you guys are talking about ways to introduce new concepts around sustainability to the market, to individuals for a healthier life. And so, to me, as a business person, that speaks to adoption, customer adoption. And Kiana, I know that we were speaking about, really how Cool Moms Dance 2 has had to and wanted to leverage technology to increase adoption of your platform, which is really around mental wellness, mental health and wellness, something that I think, a few years ago was a lot more taboo than it is today, because we have to deal with it in these times. Can you talk a bit about how technology has helped your platform and your company be more interconnected and allowed you to pivot and perhaps open up the market for customer adoption?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Monica. So with Cool Moms Dance 2 being a in-person physical class that we hosted, when we started to pivot, we were looking at different means that we can use in order to still reach our customers, get to new people, because more of our work was hyper local. And it gave us the opportunity to now expand and find different ways to connect. So streaming, utilizing video as a means to deliver our classes was something that we did initially. It was our first pivot. And it's been the pivot that made the most sense, being able to make sure that, we can stream either live or make sure that video was available for our clients. But one thing that became very, very interesting was pivoting to using different means of technology as far as applications were concerned, and just expanding your mind frame, just how you can reach those who are in need of your services. And one thing that we did that has been really, really impactful, because I know that with the studies, they say that, when you're searching for moms or looking to target moms in particular, you're looking Pinterest, Facebook, those are your main areas and places that you would find that. But one thing that was really amazing is that in the end of 2020, we were able to adopt even the platform Clubhouse. And the one thing that was interesting about integrating that into our model was because I was able to formulate something different in a space where mental health and well-being was a little less taboo because people were more comfortable talking rather than needing to be in person, being dressed up. It was more vulnerable and open and safe in order to have these spaces. And we created an amazing space that was expansive. It's a part of the big picture of Cool Moms, but it gave us another way to look at how we can adopt customers, how we can engage in supporting and providing value that is important for the customers. We were able to build a club and a network of about 12,000 people in 45 days. And it has been an organic growth. But the one thing that I noticed was that the whole purpose of the work that we were doing, addressing mental health well-being, was being addressed at that moment. We were able to have meaningful conversations and open up lines of communication the same way we were with parents and children, but this became something that expanded and showed us, okay, there are different ways as we continue to grow and the world changes that we can reach our clients, that it doesn't have to be the same model that we expected to start with, and that when you find something that works, you pivot and you're able to integrate that into the services that you provide. And I think that that was really valuable because someone who is just used to doing what works, it was very interesting to pivot and realize, okay, this was a seamless move for us. And I didn't expect it to happen that way, but Clubhouse just became definitely a space where we were able to connect and really get a lot of user information, client information about people that we normally wouldn't just do a survey, because it was more intimate and they were willing to express and share things that were necessary for data points for us to really understand, what do you need? How do you need it? How can we better serve, making sure that your mental well-being is being addressed and that the activities and the things that you need to in order to connect with your children, that you're actually getting that, because that's something that I think that we lose in the process of just running a business, that checking in and iterating with the clients are so important. So I'm super grateful for the different means of technology that we've been able to adopt, and working with Georgia Tech and being able to build out an app to support what it is that we're doing with Cool Moms Dance too, so that they can reach us in that way. All of these forms of technology have been very helpful in us pivoting and keeping a pulse on what it is that our clients need and what our community needs to continue to build community.
I think that's so interesting. I mean, from a CEO perspective, that you can better serve your client. But I also think it's interesting that clients are getting the value that you're trying to provide, even through these new channels. I think that, I know that I heard from a peer here in the last 9 months that they were practicing yoga through video, and they didn't realize that they could still have the same effects or garner the same effects of the benefits of the yoga, looking through a screen. They felt that I had to be in a room, I had to be in this hot room, I had to touch my instructor. And I think that that's really, really interesting for this community of women and for the market at large. Victoria, you've talked about e-learning and some of maybe the stigma around, like, oh, you can't really learn it through the computer. But I know that you've been able to incorporate online learning to facilitate your courses. I know you've been able to even implement new models around train the trainer so that you can scale faster using the tech. Can you talk a little bit about the success of the e-learning model and maybe some of the things, the myths that you were subscribing to and that you don't anymore because it's working for your business?
Well, yeah. So one of the biggest things I realized very early on was I can't be the PowerPoint girl. Like, I'm not going to be the PowerPoint girl. It's not cool being the PowerPoint girl. Nobody likes the PowerPoint girl. So if you're a PowerPoint girl and you're here, then you need to hear that. So I had to embrace that because that's all I knew was PowerPoint, right? So I recognized that I personally had a deficit. And before I can even educate my audience, I need to educate myself. So I actually hired an instructional design nurse who came in and talked to me and taught me just like all these different resources I could use. And it was so mind-blowing. So when I started developing my curriculum, because by the way, in addition to helping people start these schools, either I do it directly with them through complete project management, or I coach them through that process. So in coaching them through that process, I have different online learning modules that they have to go through, and then they meet with me and so on. So I was able to just kind of play with those modules initially to see how my initial cohort, how they responded to them, and they loved it. And then I was like, oh, not only are they loving this, but now they can recognize, like, I can use this for my students when I teach later, right? So it's a trickle down effect. But to your point, in creating more CNAs and more healthcare workers, we needed more nurses that were qualified to do that. One would think because you're a nurse, you know how to train other healthcare workers, and that's not true. There's real life and there's test life. And so the real life, we know how to teach, but the test life, how to get people to pass these exams, is a whole nother story. So through learning all these different resources, one of my favorite is Kahoot. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Kahoot, but I absolutely love Kahoot. So, we use different things like Kahoot for gamification with education with my clients, and I teach them to do the same thing for their students, because guess what? I don't care who you are. Everyone has a cell phone. And I don't care who you are, after 3 hours, you're going to start scrolling. Someone has scrolled during this meeting, right? So if we can take a phone and create it as a gamification tool through education, we are taking away that ability to do something we have no business and encouraging them to actually use it for learning. And so when I teach that, it's kind of mind blowing, like, wow, I didn't even know that was an option. So a lot of these tools that we can empower people to use through teaching healthcare can actually be straight through their cell phone, as well as simulations. There's patient Miss Jones, and here's what's going on with her, and tap on the screen, what would you do? And it encourages real-time critical thinking on, what do I need to do right now? Does Miss Jones need oxygen? Do I need to call for help? What do I need to do? And they have time frames where they got to figure that stuff out. So it has been, from when you talk about scalability, from being able to just touch the clients here in Atlanta and Georgia, rather, because that's where my client base was initially, I was able to go global, nationally. So I help clients on a national level now, all throughout the United States. And now I catch myself flying here and flying there to congratulate my clients on the grand openings, and just helping them with instructor development so that they can further learn what they need to teach their students and so on. So, and I do all that through Zoom or Google Teams, and just showing them it's the internet. They can just go right into the software, the gaming software, and we do it from there. It's been awesome. And it helps them overcome that barrier where they think they can't do it. When they do it with me, then they're comfortable. And when they get to their students, they're not fearful anymore. So that's big too.
That is big. Guys, I want to open it up for the panel. I have in my notes, sustainability and wellness K through 12, because I think all of your initiatives, your businesses touch not just women, but everyone that's connected to a woman. And we know that women are often the center and the hub of the wheel in their household. So I'll open it up to the panel to talk about that, because I also think that practicing and promoting sustainability early in our lives and to the young people in our community is a key to what our future will look like.
That, Kiana, were you getting ready to go? Oh, yeah, that is critical. One of the, when COVID hit, again, it just exacerbated already existing issues. And especially when you talked about children who are now in the home, and also the support system, was impacted as well, people losing their jobs and things of that nature. And so one of the things when we made a full digital transformation, although we're using technology, integrating it with how we farm insects, when you talk about digital literacy gaps, that becomes a different story. When you talk about, Victoria and Kiana and Tangeria, we talk about learning how people learn. And so we realized that was in some cases, we focused a lot. There was a lot of focus on urban areas, and we tend to think Black and brown, but there are a lot of just a cross section of ethnicities that are impacted, especially when you go to rural areas. And so being from a rural area, we're talking about AI on the fringe, artificial intelligence on the fringe. And so when you talked about using smartphones, trying to figure out ways to create curriculum that are going to touch young people and also help train them. And so in being a social enterprise, that's one of the things that's inherently built into our business model is like workforce reskilling. Going to these conferences and you're seeing all these amazing things that people are doing with digitizing horticulture, and you realize you're not teaching this to kids in K through 12. I mean, the day that we're meeting, there's already a gap that's growing. And so how do you make it, there's several factors that you have to consider. How do you make it culturally relevant? What does sustainability even mean? Define that. How do I apply it to my everyday life? How do I see myself as being a part of that supply chain? So when you're talking about food and you're talking to me about sustainabilities and all of these sexy terms, they mean absolutely nothing to someone who may be living in a marginalized community. So what are the language barriers? What's the dialect? How do people learn? Where do they hang out? And so how do you integrate, gamification and other things that make it attractive to people? And so then how do you instill those different components or learning lessons into, hey, come out to a garden and I'm going to give you some grub fertilizer to put into this little seedling for you to grow at home. And hey, when you come by the garden, bring your food scraps with you and just drop them off. And that becomes something that can be applicable to my everyday life, but also factoring in if I'm limited in resources, depending on who the audience is, I need you to make this something that's also easily replicable, something that is cheap. And so all of those different things need to be taken into account, and let those things help you inform what public policy needs to look like as well to support those efforts. Okay, now we have a better understanding of what the triggers are. Now we have a better understanding of what the type of investments need to be that are meaningful for these people in this particular community that makes sense for them, and not just kind of an agnostic application.
Kiana, you were going to add to that?
I feel like Akisi definitely hit on a lot of points that were very important. One thing that I know that across the board, representation is extremely important. And when we disregard the importance of cultural relevance and representation, it has an adverse effect when we're trying to teach those who are not familiar. And I think Akisi really pinpoint that. I know what we do at Cool Moms Dance too. When we first got started, we were approved to become training providers within our fitness format. And one thing we were focusing on is integrating wellness within the family by giving mothers the ability to become instructors in our program, but also training the children to become instructors, because that was literally, I was my first customer. I became an instructor within our format, and my children were co-instructors. And what that does, it teaches discipline. It teaches you about retention and managing what's going on within the household, building ethics and skills that are necessary in order to become available in the market and be able to be responsive to what their needs are when these children go to build lives. And the reality is right now, especially since 2020, we're really reactive to what's going on because we don't know what life is going to be like in the future, and technology is moving so fast. How do we make sure that those who are in marginalized communities are still maintaining what they need, are getting the information that they need, are getting the education that they need, and also the emotional and mental well-being to be able to sustain the life that they're building around them. So I think that the points that Akisi were speaking about are just, we can't speak to it enough. We have to create space where not only are we building things, but we're making it digestible for those who are to come behind us and actually take the baton and continue this on. We want the girls who are going to be the women of tomorrow to want to do the work that we're doing. And we have to make it relevant to them. We have to tap into what their needs are in order to, level the playing field, so to speak. So I'm just in awe of just all the women here. I think my heart is really open because it's so beautiful for us to be in a day and age where we can have all these spaces, so much representation here, and we are charging the future for something so beautiful that we, our grandparents didn't get to see this. They didn't get to connect like this where we can talk about these important things and regard sustainability, regard how we're going to impact the future and how we're going to make sure that those who are learning, as Victoria was saying, about one of the most important things that we can do, our healthcare is the most important thing to us right now. COVID is taking over everyone's lives, and we need to make sure that those going into these spaces and learning and becoming educators or being impacted have the ability to digest what it is that they're experiencing. That's so very important.
I agree with everything that each of you have said. I mean, I think that when you think about K through 12, as Akisi was saying, you have to meet them where they are. And with sustainability, teaching them young, I mean, I think in so many world, sustainability at one point had such a negative connotation. And so now it is changing. However, when you teach children young that hand-me-down or secondhand is not a negative thing, and how it can supplement their environment, how it can save water in their neighborhoods, especially when they're not getting healthy water and they're not getting those things, I think it is almost a duty to give back and to go into them and create programs for K through 12 to understand the importance of sustainability and how their contributions matter.
And I actually just want to put my nurse hat on for just a minute when we're talking about that, because so many people take for granted how intelligent our children are. Mm-hmm. Like, people are not having health and wellness conversations with their children. Oh, they're kids, they're resilient, they don't need all that, they be all right, go outside and play. But in all actuality, we have a different breed of children, whether we want to admit that or not. So they have information in front of them all day. We just have to help them synthesize it. And so having those open conversations with your children about these types of topics that we're having right now is so important. In addition to that, again, a lot of people look at medicine and healthcare as, what do they call it? Like the knee-jerk reflex. But we should really be looking at it from a preventative lens, meaning we need to be proactive. We need to get our checkups. We need to do these things. It's not, I'm going to the doctor or the nurse practitioner when I'm sick. It's, I'm going to prevent sickness. I'm going to learn. Like, it's a consultation moment where you're learning. You get the chance to ask questions. You get a chance to figure out what's best for you as an individual based upon your environment and what you have going on and how you can empower yourself to take better care of yourself. Like, that's how we really should be looking at these doctor's appointments. Dun, 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 dun. You know, they don't have to be like that. They can be a moment of inflection and a moment of question asking. And again, even making sure that you're having, including your children. Like, there's so many times I've been in a pediatric office during my rotations and the child is just sitting there looking at the wall, picking their fingers. They're not even involved in the conversation. So make sure you're involving your kids in these conversations as well, is the point I wanted to make. Because you better believe mine is only, at 5, mine knew what a uterus was, okay? So I have those conversations.
Bless the secret cocktail. Ladies, we have our first couple of questions from the audience, and this is open to the panel. How have you addressed the needs of students who need that in-person, more tactile instruction that has, now become virtual by necessity? Because we know they can struggle with this virtual environment and these modalities. How have any of you guys bridged that gap, be it in fashion, food, mental wellness, or healthcare baseline?
I can jump in real quick. There is 2 ways. One way is because of the idea with COVID, depending on how your proximity to the individual, I do allow my clients to sign up for one-on-ones, if there really is like a huge barrier, huge gap, and I would meet them and just kind of help them through that. But if we're far apart and that's not an option, I give them the will. Like, I give them the complete will on the first day. On my first day with my clients, I'm doing an assessment. So I'm giving them the will. They're sharing their screen. I'm making them click and do stuff because I want to see what their abilities are very early on. Based upon that, then I may know, okay, they need a little coaching or coaxing. I need to explain this and that to them. I need to give them a real orientation, and I need to be patient with them. Because I'm sorry, they're going to have to get over it sooner or later. I mean, I'm a hands-on person. I have to do with my hands too, but we can do on the computer also. Rather than sitting there just passively learning, you can still be active in learning through the computer.
Like Kiana, go ahead, Akisi.
No.
Well, I'm kind of curious, Kiana. I know you and I talked about this. We've talked about this over some time about how your program was very tactile, and it historically it meant meeting in person. And I'm wondering what sorts of things you're putting in place to create that same emotion or sensation with your clients. Is it because your voice is so soothing? And like, what goes into translating that in a virtual environment? And then particularly because you are working, your thesis is around families and that connectedness to your children. And we know this whole environment has made people a bit stir crazy.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. From this vantage point, we've been focused on really creating spaces where we, before when we were in person, we had an hour and that programming would last for that duration of time. The instructor would be very clear on the agenda and they would be able to manage everything. But because of our integration of technology, things are broken down into bite-sized pieces. You can rewind and go back, and we can interact in a way where we are meeting each family where they are. And then also explaining things thoroughly, because what we're doing is dance as therapy. So we are, providing the dance instruction, but when we get to the therapeutic space, we're explaining exactly what we're doing. We're talking through you know, what's the shared agreement? How do we engage in this space? What are the activities? How do you do the activities? It's a very thorough overview of what they're doing. And then we act it out with them so that they don't feel alone. But in that process, what we try to do is encourage the families to curate their own space, almost where they become the instructors as well by watching it and going through it and getting used to the process. And that has been very helpful. A lot of the feedback that we've gotten back from that has been, you know, the fact that we break it down, we explain it thoroughly. They're not rushing from one point to the other. It's not like a traditional fitness class. It helps provide less anxiety. It's more ease within the process for a family to be able to stop the video and then, okay, let's do this back together. And then they're getting that engagement. But by the time they get to the therapeutic space and we're talking through those things, they understand, both the parent and child, what they're doing and why it's important. And I think that it allowed us to be able to not miss those who were in class, literally just trying to process everything going on within the hour span that we're there in person in a different way. Because, you know, you mentioned earlier about those who were, you know, pivoting to yoga classes at home and how they're like, oh, I can do this. You know, you got to think about the fact that when you don't have to brush your hair a particular way, when you don't have to get, you know, put on to go to class to make sure that you're ready for the world, you can engage in a more authentic way. You're not judging yourself on your stretches or your movement the same way you would if you're in front of people and think you have to do things perfectly. And I think that having that space at home and being able to engage in our particular instruction in that way, it just creates more warmth, especially with the parent and child, because although we are a program and we are a specifically trained program, our whole entire goal is to get the parent and child to engage, to further their connection, to be able to talk about the things that are important and use dance as a form of physical and mental wellness. And we tend to do that, even cross-pollinating that, actually even more now that we are doing it virtually, because they don't feel like they're looking at me, the instructor, they think that's dancing perfectly, and say, okay, I don't really want to give my all because I'm not doing it the way she's doing it. You're at home, you don't care, you're just having fun, you know? So it's a different energy, a different experience. And I think that it makes it a little bit more rich because there's intimacy there that was intended for our particular format.
I think for us being in fashion, and fashion is such a hands-on type of industry where people want to try on things, and you have different designers that cut differently. So, you know, people are afraid to shop online. So virtually we provide information. It's all about information. Information is key, as much information as possible. Measurements are on our website of the clothing, so people know. So just because it's a size 6, it may be cut small. So you can look at the measurements, you can tell how that relates to your body type, you know. But also, like Victoria was saying, we also do one-on-ones and in our showroom. So Monday through Friday, we've pivoted to, we are only open by appointment. And that's so that people have that personal touch. People want to be in the space. They want to come in, they want to try on. And so they have the opportunity to make an appointment and to come in and be the only one in the showroom. And it also gives us the opportunity to treat them with the experience that we want to offer them. And so they get the experience of being in a Bergdorf's without being in a Bergdorf's with, you know, with Shopping Previously Loved, because they can come in, they can have a glass of wine, and they can relax and let some of their cares down. Yes, wine, we serve wine and champagne and all of that. So they can come in and they can have the experience, they can try on their clothes, even if they've seen them online, you know, and they can come in and get the full experience without feeling as if, you know, they are confounded by the COVID and people and, you know, and being afraid. And so we're very safe in that manner, and it gives everyone an opportunity to come in and enjoy their experience.
Which I've enjoyed, and it was awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it is awesome. Isn't it awesome?
We all co-sign on that.
Yes.
Ladies, oh, go ahead, Akisi.
No, I was going to just say very quickly for us, with our container, it has windows, which has serviced us very well. So people can just look in and see what we're doing. But also, one of the things we started, we were already doing before COVID hit, and it worked out, is actually sending home kits with kids. So we've got some families right now who are doing like our pilot where they're doing a hatchery to home kit. Yeah. And it's amazing how many people have responded to it, where you get like a little handful of grubs, you get to take them home. And so we have like a bunch of like little e-learning digital assets that you can walk through
I
exercises.
want one.
Send me your address. I will put one in the mail, and we can ship live grubs. Also, allowing people to double it as a science project, and so as a social studies project and some other things, and then helping people also kind of bridge, when you talk about bridging that gap of, okay, what does zero waste look like? Hey, when mom and dad get finished with you caring for these grubs and then they double after a couple of weeks, take them to the zoo or take them to the botanical garden and drop them off, donate them, and watch them be fed to a reptile. So those are some tactile ways that we're addressing, kind of bridging the gap for people.
I love all of this. Ladies, we're about to wrap up. There's one last topic, which is a little bit of a pivot, but it relates to all of you. And I think everyone on the panel, as well as everyone in the audience, to have a discussion about digital marketing and brand management as it pertains to female or women entrepreneurs. And I think I'll start with brand management. The ladies on the panel know, and everyone in the cohort who's in the audience, and thank you for the we sisters out there. I'm always pressing them to refine their value proposition and their special sauce, because there's something that each of us does better than anyone else in the world. And whatever that is, it's in your gut and it's in your spirit, and it should lead you throughout your entire journey. And when you're speaking to people, you should lead with that. And so I think as it applies to each of your businesses, it's very, very important to know what your brand stands for and what your brand is doing that no one else is doing, because that gives you your competitive advantage. It also takes the worry out of whether you're going to succeed, because no one else is doing it. So it's worth your time to really refine and focus. I always use the example of myself as an entrepreneur. When I first started, I said, I'm just going to have a marketing agency. That's not focus. You really have to say, I'm going to do market research on social influencers specific to youth culture. And that's even not specific enough. And all of the ladies on the panel, I think, have illustrated, that focus in their business and their value proposition. And I charge everybody in the audience to refine, focus. It's those things, it's that thing that will get you the phone call answered, the email answered, the pitch competition award, or just the general support that you need because they can't find it anyplace else. With regard to digital marketing, and they were talking about a bit of the fatigue that's around the Zoom calls, and there's quite a bit of anxiety around social media for sure these days. I think that you have to choose your platform. As a consumer and as a CEO, you have to figure out which platform is going to work for you. I mean, Kiana spoke about Clubhouse, and I mentioned her voice, which is really a divine gift. But Clubhouse works because it's audio. And I was listening to something yesterday, audio podcasting and that sort of research is a very intimate, it's an intimate connection with your audience. Which is why talk radio is so huge, and Clubhouse, I think, is an iteration of that. But it fits her product because she's really trying to help women lessen their anxiety and figure out how to better connect with their families. And so you have to find your channel and stick with it. Everything is not for everyone. Just because everyone is on Clubhouse doesn't mean it's for you, or on Facebook for that matter. I think, even when I think about The Secret Cocktail, and I don't know if social media is, well, I do know that Victoria has a strong social media presence.
YouTube.
Right,
huge
it's
for
about
us.
YouTube. Right, YouTube works for the secret cocktail. I think, with Tangeria, I think it will likely be, and you can speak to this, of course, better than I can, Tangeria. I think it's mostly Instagram, but even in her virtual fashion shows, it's going to show up on Instagram in a way that it's just not going to show up on Twitter. So I think as entrepreneurs and CEOs, you got to pick your channel, you have to prioritize, and you have to stay focused. And then everything else you have to let go and just know that you're doing what you need to be doing. I'm excited to say that we are going to be expanding the programming for the WE program beginning in the spring, summer of 2021, where we will be able to offer workshops around these issues to the broader Atlanta community and anyone in the Southeast that would like to sign up, because we know that there are more than these 15 extraordinary entrepreneurs that need these support tools and wraparound services to see you succeed. So stay tuned. Go to weatlanta.com, sign up for all of our social media. We are active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And I encourage you to follow all of these businesses as well. Ladies, I will start to wrap up now. And if there are any parting thoughts from any of you, please.
I just want to say thank you guys for having us. This has been amazing. And if anyone wants to contact me, I've put my contact information in the chat. And if you have any questions for me offline, I definitely would love to answer them.
I'd like to add just, again, what I've learned from other people and thinking about how I can incorporate that into my business. I just ask that everyone do the same. Sometimes we're so worried about how we're operating and we're focused on our particular niche and how we do it, but identifying the way other people do it and figuring out how we can make that work for us is what's called thinking outside the box, and we should all be doing that. So I just encourage everyone to consider that throughout today and tomorrow.
Collaboration is key. One of the ways we've been able to successfully navigate throughout COVID is through just our network of not only just smallholder farmers and partners, but also just network from the cohorts that we've been a part of, the tribes that we're a part of, and figuring out ways to be creative and collaborate and come up with new products and new ways of business, or just someone who can lend you an ear for a really bad day. To tap into that self-care piece. So definitely not always reaching up, but reaching across has been instrumental in helping us be successful throughout COVID.
My tribe member, I love you so much, Akisi. We're always on the same page. I was going to say the same thing. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I just want to say, I know that this is more structured, but we have to do a better job at realizing that we are better together. Everything that we need is around us, is within us. If we open up our minds to realize that every single resource that you need is in someone else's trajectory or brain and their scope, and treat each other like family, genuinely, just because we're women, but because we're part of the Atlanta community, because we're part of community, a global community. If we look at each other in that way, we can do anything together. So I just want to remind each and every one of us, as we're looking at ourselves as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs in a space where we're building something, we don't have to build it alone. We have each other to do that, and we really can do better by tapping into that and leaning on one another when we need it. So I thank y'all for allowing us to speak today, and just all the beautiful women that were giving their perspective. It has been a pleasure. I just want us to continue this outside of just a day or a week, for us to really get together on a more continuous basis, to collaborate, to talk through things, to love on one another, to help each other build, because that consistent action is what's going to help us get out of the silos that we've been working within and really build a community that's sustainable. So I want to say thank you, and check out Cool Moms Dance too.
Thank you, Monica. Air hug to everybody.
Yes, yes. check out all of these wonderful businesses. The Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative would like to thank the Women's Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to speak on innovation and sustainability and wellness to the entire community. Please join us on our socials in our community. We really are driven by empowering women because we think strong women mean strong communities. And the last thing we want to do is announce that all of the WE members, or WE cohort members, will be a part of the Women's Chamber of Commerce because of the grace of Jill and her team. And we're so excited about that. So we can continue these conversations, and we look forward to continuing these conversations with all the members of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you all so much for that. Again, another amazing panel. To reiterate the points that were said there about supporting each other earlier when Aisha talked about what's pouring into me, what's in my funnel. The importance of women supporting women is monumental. I personally had the chance to work both with Jill and the Women's Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative a couple of years ago when I was doing a project with Visa that was focused solely on supporting female entrepreneurs, and it's called She's Next, Empowered by Visa. We are just launching, I'm working with them again this year, and they have just announced another $1 million plus commitment in grants to Black female entrepreneurs, as well as mentorships through Black Girl Ventures. They're also working with I Fund Women. So this is She's Next 2021 that was just launched. I urge all of you to take a look at that and to apply for those grants. Again, all about supporting women. So thank you to Monica, all of our panelists, and all of our attendees for realizing that today and for being so gracious and being so participatory in our chats. Okay, we've got one more very important person that we're going to hear from today. That is Laura Newman. She is talking about the initiative called Inform Women, Transform Lives. Laura is the director at the Carter Center. She directs and implements their programming regarding transparency, good governance, and access to justice. And that includes projects in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. So we would like to welcome Laura Newman.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I know I'm between you and perhaps your secret cocktail at 5 o'clock. So I'll try to make this interactive. It's great to be here. Thank you for to Jill and the Women's Chamber of Commerce for inviting me. It's great to see some friends. Akisi Stokes, a little known fact, used to work at the Carter Center. And Vanessa Ibarra, who is here from the city of Atlanta, is one of our closest partners in this. So hopefully you all will join in as well. So thanks so much. For those of you who don't know, the Carter Center is a non-governmental organization. We're led by former President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind. Have been working for about, not me personally, but the Carter Center for about 40 years. As President Carter likes to say, he was forcibly put into retirement when he lost his reelection, but wanted to continue his life's work. So the Carter Center really focuses on what we call it, waging peace, fighting disease, and building hope. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is one of our big projects, a new campaign that we started called Inform Women, Transform Lives. And it's really based on the work that we've been doing for the last years around the right of access to information, to public information. And the Carter Center, we've been working on this, and it took about 10 years for us to have what I call our Oprah's aha moment, when we realized that for all the work that we were doing to advance the right to public information, women largely were not at the table. And so even though we kept saying to people, without information, information is power, you need this in order to be economically empowered, to have voice in public decision-making, to be able to promote and protect your rights. And whom more importantly than women, and yet they weren't there. And at the moment happened actually at a conference. I was with President Carter and we were in Ghana. We were doing a conference for the African region. We had about 140 people from 18 countries. And he started his entire speech by saying, could all the women in the room please stand up? And the only ones that were there, other than maybe a handful from Ghana, were the ones that he had brought with him from Atlanta. And so we kind of started to say, what's going on here? Why aren't women at the table when it comes to something so critical as information? For anybody who has met President Carter, he can be very challenging. And so when I, Casey's saying yes. So when I came to him and said, I really think that there's an inequity happening here, that there's some kind of an asymmetry, he said, okay, but prove it. So he sent me out to prove that in fact, women are being disenfranchised. They're being excluded from information flows. So we developed this study. We did it in 3 countries. We wanted to do it in 3 different places around the world to really show that this is not unique to one culture or one country, but really impacts women across the globe. We ended up doing 1,700 interviews in Bangladesh, Liberia, and Guatemala. We also had people go into about 140 public agencies to see what happens when a woman comes in to get services or information, and what happens when a man comes in. And I don't think you'll be surprised to know that we were able to, unfortunately, demonstrate my hypothesis that women really were not able to exercise this fundamental, it's part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and yet women were not able to exercise this right. To me, it's just so foundational. I mean, I listen to these amazing women talk about the different work that you're doing for economic empowerment. None of that's possible if women don't have the information, if they don't know what their rights are, if they can't access those services. So we were able to show that women are being excluded for a host of reasons, some pretty obvious, illiteracy, poverty, but also issues like fear and culture and lack of time and mobility. A lot of men told us during this study that it was because women weren't interested in information. And yet when we asked them, what kind of information do you need? These women were incredibly articulate about what they need for their kids' education, what they need to become more economically empowered and to engage more in public life. It's just that they weren't able to get that information for all of those reasons. So we started doing the work, and maybe I can give you a couple examples, because I know sometimes when you talk about information, it feels a little out there. So let me tell you the story of a community that we work with in our department in Guatemala called El Quiche. It is where it's one of the most indigenous and also one of the poorest areas of Guatemala. And every year, these communities would get some kind of subsidy from the government to try to help them to become more economically empowered. But for a number of years in a row, they didn't get anything. And so we had come with our local partners. So the Carter Center often works through local partners. And they started doing a lot of training about women's right to information and the right to ask for things, which is very empowering. And yet for many women, they just don't feel like they have that voice. So they ended up making a request for information to their local government to say, what's happened to our local subsidy? Are we going to get it this year? It's almost Christmas time and we haven't received it for the last few years. And so, which often happens, they did not get the information. So they didn't get any documents, but one day 136 chickens showed up at this community for the women, for the women's cooperative. And so with those chickens, they could sell eggs and they could also use those eggs to feed their children. And all of that was just because they wrote to the local government saying, hey, what's happened to this subsidy that you used to give us? Another of one of my favorite examples, actually 2 I'm going to put together, is in Bangladesh. So there we've been working in Dhaka in some of the slum areas, again, through local partners. And we worked with these young women who are just amazing and taught them how to be what we call information facilitators. And so they would go door to door in their communities to say to women, hey, you know, we have a right to information. What does our community need? And so in one case, one of the women said that she decided to try it herself. So she realized that on her street, there were no lampposts really anywhere in the streets around her, and how unsafe that made her feel. So she made a request to her local government to say, what do I need to do to get a lamppost? Like, how do I apply for it? What kind of information do I need? And her father became really upset and said, what are you doing? We live in slums. We don't ask the authorities for things, and you're a girl, so you're really embarrassing our family. This is very shameful for us that you're doing this. Lo and behold, 3 weeks later, a lamppost shows up right outside their home. The pride that she felt, the way that her father changed in his view to her simply because she had asked for this and got this lamppost. And another young woman who we had worked with, we were doing a roundtable, and I said, like, what do you love best about being an information facilitator? And she said, when I talk to local government authorities now, they call me madam. They respected her in a way that she had never been respected before. And it's just so simple as asking for information. And now they call her madam. So having done this for some years, in 2018, we decided to do a conference at the Carter Center. We brought about 100 people together from the gender community, from the transparency community, people from the United Nations and the World Bank, different governments, and said, okay, there's this inequity. What are we going to do together to change this? How are we going to shift policy globally, but also do it at a much more concrete and local level? Took us a while. We had a series of recommendations, and finally the Carter Center, we had our sort of epiphany when we looked at about 1,000 requests that we had helped women make over the course of the last years and realized women need information from their local government. And as much as we talk about how important and empowering it is to get a budget or know the policy, the requests that we looked at were really very like, I just want to know about street cleaning. I want to know how to get my kid into school. I want to know what loans might be available when my family is in need. So we decided to develop a campaign that worked both, again, globally to raise awareness about women's right to information, its value, and the fact that there is this inequity, but also to try to concretize it in a way that would be the most meaningful for women. And so last year, in the midst of COVID, President Carter sent out a letter to 30 mayors around the world to offer them the opportunity to apply to be part of the Inform Women, Transform Lives campaign. And we have a new CEO, and I remember saying to her, okay, are we okay if we get 3? What if we get 5? Like, what are we going to do? Because we thought we wanted 10, but it was COVID, and cities are really busy. They're at the heart of what's happening with COVID, but they're also at the heart of recovery. And so we got more applications than you could imagine of mayors saying, we need this. We need this relationship with women. We need to make sure information's getting to women. We see that they're the most impacted by COVID, but we also see that we need them if we're going to recover from COVID. And so we had a selection committee come together and we picked the top 13 actually. And so we have 13 cities and we're really excited. We have cities from 5 continents. So we have Cape Town, South Africa, Kampala, Uganda, Monrovia, Liberia, Amman, Jordan. We're working with the Lord Mayor of Dublin in Ireland, Dhaka, North in Bangladesh, Colombo in Sri Lanka, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Lima, Peru, Guatemala City, Guatemala, and then our 2 favorites, although don't tell them I said this, Chicago and Atlanta. So we're so thrilled to be finally working at home on something that's just so meaningful. And what Atlanta's been doing, and actually Chicago as well, is incredible. And so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this, but I'd love to show you our video that launched the campaign on Monday. We just launched it on Monday. It's just 1 minute and 37 seconds. And then I'll just hopefully have a little bit of time to tell you what each of the cities are doing and then see if Vanessa wants to add anything or if there's any questions. I don't want to take up my whole time because I know you all probably have lots of important things to be doing, but let me see if I can share my screen, or I don't know, Jill, if you had this primed or if you want me to do this.
Yes, we have.
Ella has it.
When you're in the dark, life can be hard to navigate, and solutions may feel out of reach.
Hear the audio, but we don't see the video.
Oh,
women
really?
in our
Here, let
city
me.
and around the world, it can be even more challenging to access the services we need. And without a clear way forward, we hit a dead end. Fortunately, we have a right to information, and information is power. Power to transform our lives, our families, and our communities. Informed women can secure municipal services like clean water, improved infrastructure, and electricity. Services that meet our basic needs. Informed women can draw on social protections like job training, disability allowances, and food subsidies, enabling us to improve our lives. And informed women can have meaningful voices by participating in public meetings, being a part of decision-making, and engaging local officials, all of which strengthen our communities. Informed women can access the kinds of benefits that benefit us all. And with the support of our city government, neighbours and family members, we can build communities that are more secure, peaceful and prosperous. Inform women. Transform lives.
Okay, great. Gosh, I'm very big now. Can we put me back the way we were? I just staring at myself. Okay, so some of the objectives of the campaign, we're trying to raise awareness, again, broadly about women's right of access to information. We want to help our cities that we're partnering with to reach women with this meaningful information. And in many cases, they already had ideas of what it was that they were doing, services that they provided, but that for a host of reasons, oftentimes just a lack of information and awareness, women weren't accessing them. So we definitely want to increase the number of women accessing those public services. We want to demonstrate the impact that information can have. And ultimately, we want to harness all this to influence global policy. So quickly, I'm going to tell you about a few of the cities in which we're working and some of the things that they're doing. So let me start with Chicago. So Chicago is working on something called the City Key. And the City Key is a one-stop shop of a key that is available for anybody in Chicago free of charge. It allows them to provide both a valid identification card as well as certain services for transportation, for the library, for discount for medicines, and other stores have given a percentage off. As I say, it's free, but it's really targeted towards families and women who are otherwise underserved, whether they're homeless or veterans, women survivors of domestic violence. And as great as this key is, over the past 2 years, they only actually got 50,000 people in all of Chicago trying to get the key. So through the Inform Women Transform Lives campaign, they're really raising awareness about the City Key. They're going, in some cases, they're going to go door to door to let people know about the key. They're using social media. They're using influencers, voices of important people in their communities, particularly communities with women of color. They're going to be using the radio and really share the benefits of the key, as well as how women can access this key, especially women who are otherwise underserved. In fact, the city clerk was telling us a story about women who leave from domestic violence situations. They often leave without any documents or very few documents. So they have a whole list of documentation that they'll accept in order to get the city key. And then a woman has a valid ID. She can get housing, she can get transport, she can get all kinds of services. So, so it's a really amazing program that just lacked that sort of connection of information. In Amman, Jordan, they're going to work on economic empowerment. So they have a lot of women who work from home. In Amman, women, even before COVID, didn't work outside the home a lot. So they have a lot of cottage industries, but you need to have a license in order to sell your goods made from home outside the home. And so what they're going to be doing is providing some training, but also a lot of information on how women can get this license so that they can then sell outside of the home. In Monrovia. So they want to work after a lot of debate on solid waste management, garbage. And at first I was a little skeptical about this idea, but actually they were super convincing because, and it's quite compelling. So what happens in the slum areas is that women take their garbage and they throw it in the river, they burn it, they bury it, and it's horrible, both in terms of air quality and as well as malaria. So mosquito-borne diseases come in through this garbage. And so what the city wants to do is raise awareness that there's places that women can take their garbage and safely deposit it, or how to recycle it or compost it, but also how to become a small business entrepreneur and start collecting garbage. So their whole focus is going to be connecting women with these issues of solid waste management in a way that both can help their health, help their community, but also help them raise money. And you guys are going to get sick of ideas, so you can stop me at any point, but I'm going to give you a few more until I see you start to nod off. So in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and this is actually a little bit shocking, but 90% of the women, there was a study done by UNFPA, one of the United Nations organizations, that 90% of women are harassed in public spaces, mostly in buses. But of those 90% who are harassed or threatened or attacked, only 4% have ever reported it. And so it's a massive issue. And they're finding that women don't want to come into public spaces because of the dangers that she faces. So what they're going to be doing is two things. Well, actually three things. They're going to develop a new safety app, and they're going to use the campaign Inform Women, Transform Lives to let women know of the safety app. So if they're being harassed, they can use the app as a direct line to let the authorities know what's happening. They're going to try to increase the number of women serving as both drivers and conductors on the buses, with an idea that if there's more women working on the buses, then they're going to be potentially safer for other women riders. And then the third thing is that they too see the value of lampposts, especially around bus stops. So they're going to let women directly request either a lamppost to be placed by a bus stop if it's right now dark, or to have it fixed as a way to make public safety or make the public areas safer for women. In Guatemala City, they run women's centers. It provides legal advice, medical care, training. They found, especially in the most underserved areas, that women under 35 weren't going. So they're going to target all of their work towards women under 35 to let them know about the centers. Okay, but last but not least, I have to talk about Atlanta and Vanessa, you should show your face because you have so much to be proud of. So in Atlanta, they've been working so hard over the last couple months, really looking at the services that the city provides that women weren't connecting with, particularly women of color. And I hate to be the one to like tell you, Vanessa, you should be telling everyone, but so they looked at the 311 line and ATL Strong, which we all know came about through COVID, and said, there's a way to convert this and make this much more meaningful for women. So if you haven't looked, you all need to go to atlstrong.org, and there's a button there that says Inform Women. And if you open it up, so Vanessa's just put it in there. It's amazing. It's got everything a woman would need, from issues for safe houses for survivors of domestic violence, economic opportunities, housing, food subsidies. So it's really a one-stop shop for women, and they're making it so easy for women to get there. But they also recognize that there still is a digital divide. So they've also made their, am I doing a good job, Vanessa? They made their 311 number also available. And they've been raising awareness these last couple of weeks. We're going to be doing incredible things over the next 6 months. The campaign will go until International Right to Know Day, which is in September. And they're going to continue to work to really raise awareness of the services that they provide and make sure that the most underserved women actually know about these services and can access them. So as you can see, I'm pretty excited about our work, about this Inform Women, Transform Lives, and its ability to increase women's economic empowerment and to promote and protect their rights, and really to demonstrate the transformative power of information for women. So I would love you all to be a part of this. We on the Carter Center website, so I will write this in the chat when I'm done talking, but it's cartercenter.org/info for the number 4 women. You can take a pledge. We're going to do a big pledge drive in June, but you can be ahead of the game and take a pledge to be a champion for women's equitable right to information, and commit to supporting women to seek public information and to use that information to transform her life, the life of her family, and really the life of our communities. So I will pause. I don't know if there's any questions. I haven't looked in the chat. Is there, Claudia, I don't know if you are leading this, facilitating this, or Vanessa, maybe I'm going to actually put Vanessa on the spot and see if Vanessa wants to add anything.
Or raise hand.
Go ahead, Claudia.
No.
Oh,
you go ahead, Mom. Fantastic.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Vanessa. I'm the director for the Mayor's Office of International Affairs. And sorry for the way I look. I did not know I'll be talking today, and it's been a long day. But what I want to say right now is, Laura, thank you very much for your vision, your leadership, and something that has been very critical for the city of Atlanta is having the opportunity to not only hear from the Carter Center, but to exchange ideas with the various participating cities. I have learned so much from talking to Cape Town, to Buenos Aires. And something that I've learned is that although we're all in different locations, we all have very much the same issues and challenges to overcome. And really, joining this campaign has also allowed us to self-reflect on the various services that we had. Something that we realized when we were putting everything together for the campaign is how some numbers didn't work, how some of the information was outdated. And we started thinking about these women that are trying to access this information, that are trying to support their families and strengthen their communities, but where do they go? And so we thought ATL strong, as Laura mentioned, ATL 311 because of the digital divide, and something that Laura really made us think about. And also, of course, you can see the information and digital signs that are across the city. There's 27 signs. And Laura, also, there will be some billboards that you'll be seeing. But there's a lot of moving pieces. And something that is great about this campaign is not only the collaboration with the Carter Center and the participating cities, but also within the various departments in the city of Atlanta. You're engaging everybody from the Chief Resiliency Officer, Shelby, who you heard from earlier, the Chief Equity Officer, Kadira. You have the whole comms team. You have the Smart Cities team, their Immigrant Affairs team, because what we really want to make sure is that we're reaching also those communities that not only were impacted before the pandemic, but who also have been very much impacted during this pandemic, which is predominantly the Black and Brown communities. So we're making sure that also everything is translated in Spanish to really be able to provide that information. So Laura, I just don't want to take more time, but I just want to say thank you so much for having Atlanta join this. And I ask everyone to please join us in making this a success and take the pledge. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Vanessa. No, we're so happy to have Atlanta be a part of it. So I also should say that we've gotten support from the Consul General of Canada.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have one more question for you from the Consul General of the Netherlands.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. Yes, I would like to congratulate you, Laura, because it's an outstanding initiative. And I already had a contact with Vanessa about this, because I've lived for many, many years in Africa, in Senegal and Burkina Faso. So I've experienced all these problems with access to information, and well, having also a culture which is not always allowing women to stand up because they have been muted.
Right.
In a lot of ways, and also not having access to education and contacts. Now, perhaps with internet, it's a little easier, but if you're living in a country where there's no electricity at all or little, then you don't have that access to information as well. And I proposed to Vanessa, I'm going to leave Atlanta, but I'm going to leave this summer Atlanta and going back to the Netherlands. But I would love to be an ambassador or a volunteer or a mentor in your program in any way, if it is possible, because I think that I have quite some experience to share with, to help women in what way or another. I do speak quite some languages from the countries you mentioned, so I can be a help of that. So please mention my name whenever you need it, and I'm happy to help you out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we need lots of champions, lots of voices. It is amazing. I think what you said about Africa is absolutely true. I think what we've been demonstrating, though, is that this isn't unique to just developing countries. It's true in the most developed countries, where women still are not getting the information or don't have the time or the mobility or the access that men have. So thank you so much for that offer. And I should say, I just wanted to say that the Consul General of Canada has been supporting the work here in Atlanta. And so I want to do a shout out to them for their support of this. So I don't know if there were any other questions. Let me see, look at the chat. Okay, back to you all then.
I think so. Okay, and if you want to put your contact information, Laura and Vanessa, you as well, in the chat, I'm sure that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very, very much for that. Let me just pop back over here. So that was amazing. Thank you to all of you. This is pretty much the end of our programming for today. We're ending just a couple of minutes early, but we do want to remind you about a couple of things about tomorrow. We'll be here at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. It is the same link. We're going to be tackling the very important subject, diversity and leadership in the workplace. Very happy to see what a beautiful, diverse group we have had here today, and looking forward to more of the same tomorrow. I want to remind everyone, if they have not already done so today, to take a page from Aisha's book and take your 7 minutes to yourself today. Once we conclude here, we're also going to be sticking around, a few of us. If anybody else wants to continue the conversation just on your own time, Jill and I and a few others will be staying here right in this Zoom room. You are welcome to, if you have to go, of course, we understand. Our 5 p.m. end time is just around the corner, but if you'd like to stay, you absolutely can. We also had the wonderful music earlier from Music Noir, and we want to make sure you know that their contact information is available at the bottom of the dashboard. You can also see all the supporters of the Women's Chamber. If you need to contact anyone, there's information there at the bottom of the dashboard as well. Thank you again, everyone, for joining, and to all of our speakers and our panel members. And we are looking forward to an amazing second day tomorrow. So thanks again, everybody, and we will see hopefully all of you tomorrow.
Thank you, Laura.